They say it's for our safety, but if that's true, why does it feel like we're the ones paying the price?
Okay, now the question is, what do they think about increasing the national debt, which is one of the ways they'll probably pay for that, and also possibly personal income tax?
Hey there, I'm Dan, and welcome to Unfiltered. If you're new here, we dig into the stories that hit Canadians the hardest, raw, real, and relentless. Not the headlines Ottawa has bought and paid for you to read, but the stuff that actually affects your wallet. It affects your family, and it will affect your future. Like this. In 2025, Canada made a promise not to struggling families, not to communities trying to stay afloat across this country, but to NATO. And now we as taxpayers, we're going to have to pay for that. Canada just pledged to spend 3.5% of our economy, our GDP, on military defense by 2035. But the pressure to spend, that starts right now. Because the short-term commitment, well, we're aiming to hit 2% of GDP by the end of this fiscal year. Why? Well, we've got some pressure from NATO. We've got some pressure from allies, and yeah, from this guy right here, Donald Trump. Now, let's be real. We're not starting from zero here in Canada. And as of 2025, we're already running tens of billions in deficit and sitting on over $1 trillion in national debt. And according to the C.D. Howe Institute, this new military commitment, well, it could push the deficit over $92 billion this year alone and tack on another $68 billion in new spending over the next decade. Now, stay with me all the way to the end of this video because we're going to uncover that topic even more. And that's just the price tag. What about the trade-offs? Now, let's just pause for a minute. Let's be clear. This isn't about being anti-military. Canada's armed forces deserve our full respect and support. To our veterans and those serving today, thank you. And if you want to support those who've served and are serving, well, there's no better way than backing your local Legion and your community. And always in November, please buy a poppy.
Has agreed to a new defense investment pledge, which secures Canada's strategic and security goals. As part of that, Canada is already beginning working towards a target of 3.5% of GDP by 2035. By expanding our plan to invest in the Canadian Armed Forces, to modernize our military equipment and technology, to help build up our own defense and security industries, as well as to diversify our defense partnerships. We're also working to ensure that we are spending 1.5% of our GDP in defense and security-related infrastructure.
That's a huge promise. And not everyone's buying the math because to stay financially afloat, the C.D. Howe Institute says it'll take deeper cuts, not small belt tightening, but real sacrifices.
Further to that, during the NATO summit last week, the federal government and Canada committed to a new target of 5% of GDP spending within the next decade. The C.D. Howe Institute estimates that by 2035, reaching that 5% target could mean that defense spending alone could add $68.4 billion to Canada's deficit. That is a significant amount of money. And as you've touched on, the C.D. Howe Institute is pushing the federal government to make further cuts, program spending cuts, and find ways to make up some of that money.
And when they say efficiencies, they're not talking about empty office supplies. They're talking about programs, services, stuff that people in this country rely on. Hey, listen, if this is hitting home, do us a favor, subscribe, and please share this video. We need more Canadians in the loop before decisions get made without us. So here's the surprising part. Canadians aren't against the investment, and in fact, over 62% support spending more on defense. Watch this.
Okay, let's talk about that defense spending, that the money we want to spend on it. What do Canadians think about the idea?
Well, the thing is that over the last while, the appetite to increase defense spending, especially in the context of our NATO commitments, has been increasing. Back in 2023, we asked Canadians, on the defense spending front, did they want to maintain? Did they want to have less defense spending? Did they want to have more defense spending? Or 2%? Back in 2023, almost two out of every three Canadians wanted us to hit our 2% target for NATO. We're not hitting it. We're not hitting at that time. But fast forward now, Roger, what's interesting in the latest wave of research that we did with CTV News, 52% of Canadians would like to hit the 2%, but check this out, 32% would be supportive of going to 5%, which would be a significant increase in the investment and spending on the defense front.
But if you dig deeper, the story changes. Support doesn't mean a blank check. Like this right here. 62% say cut from other departments, only 9% support going deeper into debt. Now let's go back to that pressure from Trump for just a minute. This push isn't just about strategy. This push is about trust. Because after years of underfunding our military, NATO allies want to know, can Canada actually deliver?
Will all this spending impact our deficit?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, that is kind of the big question. How do you balance both out? And if you look at the numbers that we just outlined, even if you do manage to cut $13 billion of public service spending, that is not enough to make up for the significant increase in defense spending that we are expecting to see. Again, we're looking at a number of $68.4 billion added to the deficit by 2035 for defense spending alone. The federal government is going to have to find further efficiencies, is going to have to make further cuts, or accept that they're going to be borrowing more money moving forward to reach these targets.
You can't underfund the military for decades and then act surprised when your allies question your commitment. But the clock is ticking. This year alone, we have to choose. Do we raise personal income taxes or do we raise the national debt?
Okay, now the question is, what do they think about increasing the national debt, which is one of the ways they'll probably pay for that, and also possibly personal income tax?
Yeah, well, maybe it's not a big surprise. Ask Canadians on whether we should be increasing personal income taxes to pay for these extra defense investments. 9% actually outright support paying through personal taxes, and another 27% somewhat support. A little more agreement or appetite for increasing the national debt. About 15% support, another 34% somewhat support. That's almost half of Canadians, 49%. So given the choice between personal taxes and increasing the national debt, I think for many Canadians, what they see is they'd like to see defense paid for through the debt process.
And if you think it'll all get covered by efficiencies, watch this.
A separate report from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives looks at what it would cost to cut to the public service as much as the federal government promised to do so, or the Liberals promised to do so during the campaign. Mark Carney and the Liberals promised in 2026, 2027 to reduce the public services spending by $6 billion and then to further reduce it to $13 billion by 2028 to 2029. The promise was to do so through better efficiencies in the public service. The Canadian Centre for Public Alternatives says it would require 24% cut in public service spending to eventually reach that $13 billion cut. It will be very difficult, this report indicates, to do so without actually cutting the public service and some of the programs, rather than just doing so through efficiency. So these two reports from two separate institutions are providing a pretty unique outlook at what the federal government's finances could look like if we commit to that promise of reaching 5% of defense spending eventually, but also if the federal government, if the Liberals do follow through on that promise to make significant spending cuts to the public service.
Mm-hmm. So why does all this matter? Well, because when we make massive new promises in this country without a real plan, you and I, the taxpayer, we pay. We pay in cuts and taxes and potential broken programs. Canadians were still dealing with food price hikes, housing chaos, expenses right across the board, and now we're looking to fit a bill for a plan that, well, I think we barely understand. This is what we do here at Unfiltered. If this matters to you, hit the subscribe button, join our community, and drop this to someone who needs to see it. Let's get this message out. Okay, let's recap from today. Canada pledging 3.5% of GDP by 2035, aims to hit 2% this year. Projected deficit sitting at about 92 billion. 62% of Canadians say don't go deeper into debt. Programs might face the axe. We're going to keep an eye on this and how it plays out here at Unfiltered. Coming up this Tuesday, we're going deeper on a new feature called the Community Unfiltered. And we're just not picking the topics, but you are as a subscriber. But only if you're a subscriber. Now, once you do subscribe, check the Community Post tab. Drop your topic suggestion there. We might just cover it off coming up this Tuesday, August the 5th. Also, don't miss extras. We're on TikTok, X, Facebook, Instagram. You can now follow Unfiltered across all platforms to get daily takes and live replies. If you found this valuable and want to help us keep going, you can drop us a super thanks below or buy us a coffee. But more than anything, thanks for watching. Make sure you do drop your province or your state in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.